you don't understand how plugged in you are until you detach.
When we step into these pursuits that pull us into nature, pull us out of the noise of the world, allow us to connect to ourselves.
Not only can you exist without being online, but there's some great stuff in your mind that you don't hear because you're so connected.
And then by doing them, connect us to so much more. All right, friends, today I have Tiffany Shlain on the podcast. She is amazing. When you think of the word okay, this is her, okay? Like she's an artist, an author, a speaker, like all the her things, a feminist, like mover, boundary, baker, pusher. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. It's so fun to meet women that are all about empowering women. Your abundance talk hit home so much instead of saying, hey, look at all these things we've done, women. Like there's a lot of things we're doing. Like don't let them feed you that lie that we're not so capable of so much and we're already doing so much.
Completely. I mean, I think when you can tell stories many different ways. As a filmmaker, where you start the story matters. There's one piece of art that I finished recently, which is a feminist history tree ring. And basically like any tree ring that you see at the entrance of a national forest, that's like a slice and it tells the history. I love those, except they're always about men. And I thought, I want to see a feminist history tree ring. And I'm kind of playing with the convention that each ring equals a year. And I go back 50,000 years and I start the story when women were worshipped as goddesses 50,000 years ago in every single civilization. And that's a much better place to start the story. So even the story you tell yourself about your own life, because we all have a story that we keep telling ourselves, think about where you start the story and what's your hero's journey. And for women, we need to retell a new story from a position of strength and power. It's just a much stronger place to start.
No. Okay. So here's me. I'm a mom of 7.
7.
I know 7, lucky 7, right? So I had 5 boys and twin girls. And I tell you what, the minute I had those girls, I was like, okay, like game on, because there's no reason that you are not equal to your siblings just because of your gender. And so your mama has been missioned with making this an option for you to have a better opportunity when you grow up. So I'm doing this parenting thing. I get in a car wreck that should have taken my life and didn't. And I get stuck on that soul seeking. Like, why wasn't I killed? Why was I saved? What's my resume going to say? Who am I? And what's my purpose in this life? And like stories of events kind of unfold. And my son challenges me to climb Mount Everest because I challenge him to finish a hard math problem. And so I take the challenge. And in this pursuit, I get introduced to a quest that's called the 7-second summits. So it's climbing the second highest point on each continent. It hasn't been done by a female before. 7 kids, 7 continents, 7 peaks. Like it just was my thing. And so I stepped into this pursuit. As you know, in any pursuit that we take on, so much more happens because we're in the game of life and living. And I was on this mountain in Antarctica, and it was called Mount Tyree. It's the first American female to summit. And I remember being on that mountain in the morning, getting ready to go up for our summit push, and thinking, my mom and my grandma would have never had this opportunity. But the work that they did in their days put me in position to have this opportunity that I'm in. And so when I started marching up that mountain, I was on such an energy high with that concept. And then when I put the American flag up, I was like, okay, where are you guys taking this next? Because I just made this possible, which means now this is easier to get to. So how much further can you take this flag and what can we do for women all over? And when I ran into all of your work and everything that you've done, you're singing the same song.
Yeah, that's a great. I love that visual. I want to see a picture of you putting that flag up. That's a great moment. I want to relive it. And for years, the first decade of my career, I was a filmmaker, but I also founded the Webby Awards, which honors the best of the web. And it was very early on. The web had just started. It was in the 90s, and no one really knew. A lot of people didn't know what it was, but those of us that were playing with it and building it and exploring it, I felt like this is going to change the world, which it has. But my goal was to honor people like this is the best of this category website. And kind of like what you were saying. So, like putting a stake in the ground of like, this is excellence. And now next year, everyone, you have to go beyond that. We just put a stake into the ground of what is excellence on the web. And it was fun to see the first decade. I sold it like 17 years ago, a long time ago. But that idea of like putting a stake in the ground, a flag on a mountain, and going push beyond that for the next people behind you or the next generation of women, girls. And I do believe in progress. I know there are a lot of issues in the United States. It feels like we're going backwards, but a lot of my work, all of my films, I usually always go very far back in history on that particular issue. And then you're like, oh my gosh, we're totally moving forward. So whenever we get frustrated with the progress, the rate of progress, just go back 100 years on any issue and you're going to be like, oh, we're moving in the right direction. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes. But even with women's progress, I like you. I mean, being a woman director and not thinking twice about it would not have happened to my mother's or my grandmother's generation. So it's definitely something I don't take lightly. I feel like a lot of, people fought to widen the path for me, and I need to keep on doing that for other women. And yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, and it's exciting because there's so much to be done and so many like things to dismantle and rethink.
No, and here's like the crazy thing about it. Like I'll share another story is so I'm on Mount Everest and I'm interviewing climbing companies. And I said, hey, can I use a hair dryer to this first company I call? And the company is like, what are you talking about? Like, well, I have long blonde hair, so I need a hair dryer so that I don't get sick and I don't get a chance to sub it. It's not like I want shrimp on my like dinner at base camp. My head's going to freeze and I'm going to get sick and not summit. And that's not an option. So then I call a second company and the second company says to me,
So wait, were you looking for like a battery pack blow dryer?
well, I even had so a company called Goal Zero gave me a solar powered battery that powered like a 1,000-watt hairdryer, which let me tell you what a 1,000-watt hairdryer does. Nothing, but it helps. Like it helps a little bit. Okay. So anyway, so the second company's like, well, maybe we can let you use the generator for once a week. And I'm like, okay. And the third company goes, would you like a mirror? I'm like, that's the company. Okay, we got all the safety, all the extra. This is the company I'm going with. So at first I felt like a little weird drying my hair at base camp because I had to be outside my tent because I had to have the sun on the battery and all this kind of stuff. But then like, here's the magic. The magic is at the next mountain I went to, there was no less than 10 women that came up to me and said, thank you for being the person that gave me permission to be a female in this mountaineering environment. I brought my nail polish. I'm brushing my hair. I'm doing all these things because I can do this and still be a female and not apologize. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, if you show up and do what you need, that's respectful of what's going on, you give permission to so many other people to do the same thing. And we're here interconnected to support each other.
Totally. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. I have a mission. I definitely, when I meet young women, I do. Well, actually, I have a question for you. You have 7 kids. So how old were you when you had your first child?
I was 26. And my kids are close together. So my oldest is 16. I have 5 boys. Then I have twin daughters that are 10. So, I mean, I literally 6 years, 2 months, have 7 children.
Well, my new film is going to be very relevant. I'm making a film about the adolescent brain, and it will come out.
I have all of them.
You have the whole range. I think hopefully it'll be very illuminating. It's like based on all the newest neuroscience research on the adolescent brain. And it'll be a short film that will hopefully speak to the teens and the adults that love them. So I am making a film specifically, it sounds like, for you.
See, we were meant to meet each other. I literally just went through my brain the other day. I said, oh my God, I'm going to have 7 teenagers under my roof at one time. Like one will be 19 and the youngest will be 13.
I'm trying to get my head around it. I can't because I have a 20-year-old who's like out. She just so much fun. She's in college. We have so much, she's fully out of like any of the eye roll period. And then I have, a 14 who's super fun, but then the other half of the time I must be annoying her in every way. And it's such a fascinating period of human development. And that's what I'm going to explore, because it really is an amazing time for the brain's growth and all the things that are happening in there. So my goal is to really make a film to unpack that, empower teens, support teens and parents, and all that.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's a story for your movie that you can help me unpack and figure out what happened. My 16-year-old son, I have boys all first. So everything in my house is crowdfunded. Like every idea gets escalated because they have this little tribe that are all next to each other in age. So my 16-year-old comes home at midnight. I'm like, sweet, I get to finally go to bed. So I go to the bathroom and go to bed. He walks through the front door, out the back door, grabs my car and goes down to Salt Lake City, which is like 35 minutes away from where we live, to meet a friend, to get Wendy's. Okay, whatever. Somehow, some other teen is on the highway at the same time. So I-15 connects Salt Lake City to Vegas and is revving the car that he's in. So then my son gets excited and they start racing vehicles at 1 a.m. on I-15. And I get a phone call at like 2 something in the morning that says, hey, Jen, your car's impounded. We have your son. He's alive, but he was clocked over 100 miles an hour in a high speed race. And so you need to come pick him up. So I go to pick him up in the other vehicle and I'm like, he's 2 hours away from where we live. Like, what is going on here? And so I wanted to squish him. And then at the same time, I'm like, this is the teenage brain. Like, are you kidding me? You don't live Fast and the Furious.
It's the risk taking is very high and the reasoning part of your brain not fully there yet. But hopefully he'll never do that again, because he went to the edge. And that's what teens do. And their strength also is that, I'm going to have this scene at the end of all these teens that have really stood up and made change, because they also will take risks that older people won't. So it's interesting. Wow. So you didn't squish him?
I did kind of squish him. But here, like, and there's a part of me, like, this is the terrible mom in me. There's a part of me that's like, man, I love the guts that you have, even though it was like totally irrational and poorly played out. But and he was remorseful. He doesn't have his license now and like all the things that go with it, which I'm okay with. But such a fascinating age to witness and to parent and to like support and to just be there for. It's messy, but it's fun. And it's still like, wow, okay, well, that happened. It's a lot of that happened.
I'm just about to go see this weekend Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I don't know if you know that book.
I've heard it. I've not had a chance to read it.
It was a very profound book when I was starting to be a teen back in the 80s. And I gave it to my daughter like 3 years ago. And she tore through it, gave it to every one of her friends, like walked to people's houses and like put their name on it and then says, give it back to me. And then she gave it to another friend. And it just came out as a movie and we're going to go see. But it's a lot about being a girl teen and menstruation and like getting breasts. But I remember reading it and just being like, oh my gosh, it's this whole other world. And I think it's such an interesting time because you're just in the in-between time. You're in the in-between place of being a child and being an adult. So I think that's why it's so hard is you don't get excited to go to the toy store anymore, but you can't get into a bar and like go dancing. You can't, like, you're in this kind of.
Right. No, it is. It's that mix. It's that messy middle of, and sometimes you have the maturity to act like adult. And then the next minute you're like making fart noises with your armpits at your sister. Right. I mean, that's just the mix. So one of the things that I absolutely love with the work and the research and the art and the things that you've done is this whole sabbatical on technology. Right? You do the 24/6. So your family turns in the phone, I think Friday nights to Saturday nights. This has been just a gift to you. So share this because it's a huge gift.
Yeah, it has been, yeah, I started doing it. It's almost been 14 years. My father had just died, who I was really close to, and my daughter was born just kind of within days of each other. And it was a very profound soul searching period, kind of like where you were when you got into the accident. But mine was like, I could die at any day.
Yeah, balancing those parallels, right? Like growing life and watching it wither away at the same time. That's a lot to hold.
Yeah, it was just an amazing thing. And it was a gift, really, because It made me really rethink how I was living. I wasn't feeling present anymore, and I wanted to feel present again. So I am Jewish. I'm not religious, but there is a very old idea in Judaism that is in every religion of the Sabbath, a day of rest. And I feel like we've never needed it more than now. So my family and I started turning off the screens from Friday night to Saturday night. And it was such an immediate switch into what my family needed, what I needed, just thinking thoughts again without so much stimulation on my brain, and turning off the noise of the notifications. And it became our favorite day of the week is Family Day, which I grew up with on Sunday, but it's kind of evaporated. I don't know if you guys have a family day.
It's times have changed, right? Like it's interesting. So I had a birthday a few days ago. We do birthday cake for breakfast because it's the only time of the day that everybody's home, right? And you're like, wow, times have changed. But I mean, now it's kind of like our fun family tradition that birthday cakes for breakfast. But to give you an idea of how busy our lives are, like we have to do that for breakfast instead of at a dinner time because that just makes it consistent.
I know it's we also do that. We do breakfast in bed. We don't do cake for breakfast, but I'm sure my family would love that. But we do breakfast in bed. And but I hear you that people are so scheduled now, and with sports and activities, and then the internet and the phone and the everyone, they're traveling with their whole friend group every second that they're home also, so there's no separation. So we started doing this, and it immediately kind of brought this reconnection to my family in this very deep way once a week. And it brought a lot of insights to me. It's the day I feel most creative, I'm most present. It just had so many blessings attached to it. And we just kept on doing it every week, every week. And as we were doing it, the more addicted the world became. And I mentioned earlier, I founded the Webby Awards. I'm deep in technology. My husband's a professor of robotics. We were like in it. So it's not like we're anti-tech. We're just like, I'm just not into it every day of the week. So I ended up writing a book called 24/6 instead of living 24/7 online. And it's been exciting how well the book has done and how many people have adopted the practice from every different faith, no faith, just as a way to balance the screen use. And so, my daughter now she started when she was 6. She's now in college and still does where she doesn't do, we don't let the kids do any homework on Saturday. We don't do anything except joy. My younger daughter, who's the almost 14-year-old, it's been interesting because we always have people over for dinner Friday night for Shabbat dinner. We make a beautiful table. She sets the table gorgeously. We make fresh bread. My husband makes a roast chicken. We do like this. It's like a Thanksgiving meal every week, kind of. We always have people over. It's so great. But now it was interesting because my younger daughter, after the dinner, she's like, "Can I see my friends?" And she's like, I get it. And so we kind of have made an adjustment where after dinner, we usually have family or friends over on Friday night. She can go out with her friends and then come back. And then Saturdays are unplugged day, all day together. And that's my favorite day with her. We bond like we don't during the week because everyone's like, just doing life. And yeah, so I really value it as like any idea that's lasted thousands of years, I'm into. And this is a over 3,000-year-old idea called the Sabbath, and I call it Tech Shabbat. And then I called the book 24/6 to kind of remove it at all from to not make people stop the idea if they're not religious or they like a religious turns them away.
Yeah, to not give them an excuse to say this doesn't apply to me, right? I mean, like humans make enough excuses for themselves. We don't need to give them any. Yes.
Exactly. So let me just get to the basic empirical idea is 24/6. You work and you're available and online and getting notifications 6 days a week. And one day you are present and you're only with the people in the room or just yourself. And I love, especially as I've gotten older, I love being by myself and just thinking what I'm thinking. Like I can't hear the thoughts when there's so many interruptions and so many other people's thoughts of what they want me to do on email or a notification. I wish I was there. This headline, boom, I'm just like responding. I'm like a pinball machine all day. And then this one day, I completely return to myself. I journal, I think, I am full of gratitude. I'm just like, instead of wanting to be somewhere I'm not, which usually social media does, I'm completely happy where I am and appreciating what's right in front of me and including my relationships or even my animals. We have a dog and a cat or the garden. It just completely, it's like a switch changes every week. And I'm in that mode for 24 hours. And then I'm super psyched to go back online. It's like I almost reappreciate, I have a thought, I can act on it and I can see what's happening. And like there's two benefits every week. One, I can't wait to turn it off and get a break. And then I'm psyched to turn it back on. And I think it's really taught our kids how to exist without the phone, and that they can, and they do it every week. It's like a muscle. So I like that they have that resourcefulness also.
Yeah. Well, and it's just amazing. So when I go mountaineering, we do not have any access to technology.
Oh, right. That's another. So how long do you go for?
So it depends on the mountain, but it's sometimes a couple weeks at a time. Like this next one, which would be the end of my quest, is it's a 3-week pursuit.
Wait, it's the end of your seven, like every peak?
Yes, isn't that exciting? I'm like
Amazing.
so happy about it. I started in October of 2020 and I did not summit every mountain the first time. So when I went to do K2, I did not summit K2 in 21, but I did summit K2 in 2022. This mountain I've been to before. And it's a hard one. Like it's so hard. I wish I didn't know what I know because going back, it's just such a physical undertaking. But I tell you, like when we step into these pursuits that pull us into nature, pull us out of the noise of the world, allow us to connect to ourselves, and then by doing them, connect us to so much more and make so much more possible. It's humbling that it's even part of it. But when I come back from being on the mountain, I'll tell you, sitting in a car and having lights coming at you and stoplights and sounds, and I mean, all of it is just so much stimulation that you forget. Like we acclimatize to be able to go up a mountain and be in less oxygen. Everyday life, we're acclimatizing to the stimulation and to all the changes in our lives. And unless we take a time out and say, is this how I want to be? It's really easy to just all of a sudden become that boiling frog and have your life be what's you're slowly acclimatizing to.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad. So you know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's some people that have never been offline. Like they never turn it off. And I'm just always like, you don't understand how plugged in you are until you detach. So you get this when you go on these. And I remember my favorite trip growing up, and I'm really wanting to take my family on it with my kids, is the Grand Canyon, where it was like a 10-day river rafting trip. And you're going deeper and deeper into what I kind of call the vagina of the earth, because it looks like you're going through all the folds. You're going deeper and deeper into the earth, and you're away from technology, and it's like so incredible. And I think that people need more of that, just because I think people forget that not only can you exist without being online, but there's some great stuff in your mind that you don't hear because you're so connected. And like I said, my best ideas, if I track, I'm a creative, I make films and books and all this. So I track and I write down my ideas, and the best ones come on Saturday. Best ones come when I'm writing with a pen and a piece of paper, and I'm just like dumping out my head of all these incredible ideas that don't get to see the light of day because they're so interrupted normally. But to be honest with you, like I was just thinking about this recently, that I couldn't, I have a friend who's a writer, and he goes offline, every day for 5 hours to write, which I totally get. I personally, like, one day a week is just perfect for me. Like, I look forward to it. And again, this goes back to, this idea has been around for like 4,000 years. One day of rest. And in our modern society, I think rest means turning off the screens, because you can turn off so many stressors that, because, your phone has so many nice things for people you love. But there's also news headlines and stressful things. And I mean, I had an instance recently where it was right before I was going to go to bed, and I'll just check it one more time. Of course, it was stressful. I didn't sleep. And I was so mad at myself. I'm like, you know better than that, Tiffany. Don't check that thing before you go to sleep.
I have to put myself at a bedtime. Okay. If I don't give myself a bedtime, I will doomsday scroll and then be up way too late and then wreck my next day. Okay.
Exactly. So it's about, so I think with the discipline of turning off, and, I write in my book, anyone that's listening that's interested, I really hold your hand how you can bring it into your life. My book, 24/6. But it's like a muscle, I don't even, I feel like, oh my God, was it hard? And, I did it completely. The first time I tried it, I did it a whole day. And I found that it just gave me all the things I needed in one day. I felt so great. But some people, we're doing this program that's more like a couch to 5K model, where like first week you just turn it off for dinner, then you turn it off for bedtime too, and then you turn it off also the third week for the Saturday morning. And it's, you know, people are different. I personally liked the drama of feeling so great, and I think I'm sure you feel that way when you go on one of these expeditions where you feel so,
you just feel so insignificant. This is like when I'm on these big expeditions and you're in these huge, vast environments with all of this, like you feel so insignificant. Yet you know, like the part that you play in this planet is so important. So it's just this dichotomy that you get to live in for a little bit that just brings you home to yourself.
I love the way that you describe that, because I just did this big art show called Human Nature, and a lot of the pieces were attempting to give that feeling that you just said of how nature, well, first of all, we are nature. That's why I called it human nature, because it's an interesting pair of words, human nature. But we are nature. There's one piece in the show I have called Earthling, and it's a shot of the earth. I wish I could show your listeners, you can't, but it's like a shot of the earth. And then I have one of my sculptures, like this woman on a branch looking at the earth from outer space. And I called it Earthling because we are from the earth. And when you think about how, when you go into nature, and I live amongst the oldest trees in the world in Northern California, and you're with these trees that have been around so long, it just returns you to this kind of smallness, insignificance, however you want to call it, that realigns you. You know, sometimes we're in our heads and we're just like thinking about all our problems and all our worries. And then you go into nature and you're like, wait a second, I'm just this small human on this big earth floating through space. And it suddenly like realigns you.
Yeah, no, it does. It's so good to have that balance of input, output, and just, you know, and I'm like you. I'm one of those people that I want to go all in and get like the full thing, but I understand that people need to take the different steps because that's what's best for them. And I love how your book introduces the concept, makes it available for all, and lets you figure out, okay, how could this work for me? What kind of benefits could I get?
How can I make, yeah. And how can you customize it for your family? Like, I don't want you to not try it if you're like, oh my God, but my husband or my kids watch sports on this day. Like, this could never, like, first of all, we did it with kids, 2 kids in soccer. We were able to just write down where the games were and not be online for that. But I'm really a believer that make it work for you. Like, take a break from the screens, and I'll show you a lot of different ways. I was actually curious how you found the book. Like, I know a lot of people, it's always interesting to me. Did someone recommend it, or did you?
Yeah, no. So Scott Miller. So Scott's a good friend of mine, and I actually have a book coming out this fall.
Great. What is it called?
We haven't landed on a title yet. Titles are hard. Like it's shockingly hard, to be honest.
You know who you should ask for? What is it about your quest?
Yeah, so I'm kind of mixing quest, business, and family into chasing your own mountain or your own pursuit and how not to quit on that. Like where it gets sticky or hard, helping people identify that that's going to happen. And when it happens, here's how to help navigate it instead of feeling like that's a sign to turn around. So yeah, your classic self-help book with a little twist.
Well, for titles, let me recommend. I don't know if you've played with Chat GPT at all. It's amazing for titles. I'm not joking. Go in, put your synopsis, and say, come up with a whole bunch of title ideas, and you're going to be blown away. I have a friend that renamed her whole purse line, and it's a great name based on Chat's suggestion.
It's so good. I love that's what like right? Like we're not saying don't take advantage of technology. And believe me, I didn't have social media before I went on this pursuit. And then I got, because I had this like stigma of what it meant. And then I got social media because one of my girlfriends is like, hey, the closest thing I'm ever going to get to doing this is following you. So you have to start social media and share. So I got into social media. I started sharing. And then I started meeting people like all over the globe. I mean, my pursuit's this global pursuit, right? So I have to fly to Australia or to Russia or to Africa or to Antarctica.
What social media do you use?
Well, now I'm almost on all of it because that's what happens.
But what do you gravitate towards more, though? I mean, what feels like?
Probably Instagram because I have so many unique photos from what I'm doing that like gets the way to share what those places in the world look like. But here's the story. Like a girl, I was training to climb a mountain and a female wanted to climb it and she got cancer and she couldn't. And so then I was like connected to her. So I brought prayer flags to the top of the mountain. And when I came home, I shipped them to her. She unfortunately passed away from cancer. That her husband called me a few months later and said, like, hey, I buried her with these prayer flags. Thank you for doing this for our family. And I'm like, social media has so much amazing ways to connect us to these amazing people, but it has a place. And we can't let it like overrun our individual little bubble that we live in, because that's so important too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Like there, and I do talk about that in the book too. Like there's so many beautiful examples of using social media and connecting with new people that have shared interests. And I love it. I'm just saying, like, time and a place. And if you're on your phone when your kids are trying to get your attention and you should be connecting with your kids, like who's right in front of you? And so I think they're both valuable for different things, but the things that's more valuable is your family. And so, like, carve out the time. And it takes courage to say, I'm not going to live the way everyone's living. And I'm going to try something that's a very old idea that's withstood thousands of years to try to see if it helps bring some balance back into my family and my life. And that's really, really what I did.
I love it. And so now you can buy the book, which I highly recommend. You can understand the concept. Really easy. Just unplug gradually, all together, whatever. Give your chance to like get ideas coming from inside of you instead of from outside of you.
I mean, I think if you, at my website, TiffanyShlain.com, without a C in my last name, you can get the book there. I've made quite a few films about the subject, short films. And then my new art, which has been really exciting, which is all about kind of nature.
Those trees. Oh, the new art is fascinating.
Yeah, so that's been really exciting to me. And then, the adolescent brain film. I have a monthly newsletter I've been doing for 25 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but
and it's up on our website, friends. Like you could literally click on all the different buttons and it goes. I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been doing it forever before newsletters were cool. I mean, let's be honest.
I've been doing it forever, but I'll put your book in when it comes. When does the book come out?
November 14th. So thank you. I'll let you know. I'll reach out for sure.
That is so exciting. Well, I usually kind of talk about whatever project I'm working on, and then I curate like 10 to 20 books, films, podcasts that people should check out. So it's been really nice to continue to shine the light on other people. Even when I sold the Webby Awards, I still have a nice platform for that. And then on social, it's so interesting when you were saying that, because like I started where I was mostly only on Twitter. And I have a big following there, but now lots have happened there. I'm not on there anymore, hardly at all. And I'm on Instagram, and I'm trying to be on LinkedIn more.
LinkedIn is the new magic space. I know. I agree. It's like,
because it's got a nice feed. It's got a good feed. I'm just trying to and Facebook is still for just like old friends, but I'm not like sharing information on there. I'm more just, yeah, but it's, who knows? I'm not on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I am, only because but not heavy. Just so like if someone looks at me, it's not like I don't exist. TikTok's, I don't know. It's a harder platform for me to enjoy, but I get the benefit of it, I guess. It's just fast. I'm trying to be playful and experience all of it and just be, okay, here's what this platform's for. What can I take from it? What can I add to it? And go from there. It's been so much fun learning and understanding this benefit of the 24/6. Also, we get to check out your website so we can learn about all your artwork, all the great movies that you're putting out there. I went on a movie binge the other day and I think I've watched every single one of them, came out with a whole bunch of better things to think about, consider, or whatever. So thank you. Share your website and share where we should find you most on social media, even though I know you're not trying to spend too much time there.
Yeah, I'm just at TiffanyShlain.com. My last name is spelled SHLAIN.com. And I'm on all the socials with that, just at Tiffany Shlain. And then I have my monthly newsletter, which I've been doing for 25 years. And I'm always, talking about the new projects I'm working on, and then sharing a lot of other great projects by people I know that I think they should check out.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet you.